Okay, so here I'm connecting one of the USB harnesses from the kit to the webcam module, and we're going to position it diagonally and secure it with some tape. I used some athletics tape for this step. This is going to plug into, I think, the number 4 output, USB output of the controller board. And now we need to move the old connector from the top to the left-hand side of the LCD screen because the USB harness we're going to connect to it won't fit otherwise to the USB input of the controller board. Just bend it down. Now I'm taking the USB harness to the webcam, plugging it into the controller board. Again, I think it's position number 4. Putting the LCD panel back on. I just hand tightened it. I didn't bear down. I didn't want to break anything. This is the first time I took apart my Aspire One, so I was a little nervous. Now that's the USB harness that we're going to connect from that cable that we moved to the left-hand side, and that's going to go into the USB input of the controller board, which I'll connect later. This is cable management. Of the entire project, I would say this was the hugest pain. Not so much this side, but the other side was ridiculous. I'm getting the wires to fit. That thing I have my finger on is a hinge to the LCD panel, and you need to unscrew it so you can tuck the wires underneath. And then also it'll fold over the top of the chassis hinge. This is double-sided tape for the touch panel. I just used double-sided carpet tape. They don't include anything in the kit for this, and it seemed to work fine. This will keep your touchscreen from moving around. You want to try to get this the panel perfectly center, because you have to install some thin rubber strips around the outside of it to keep it from moving around. And that is some double-sided rubber that they give you to put at the bottom of the controller board. You have to feed the wires in from the left because the controller board won't go in from the right, doesn't fit. One wire is the USB harness to the webcam, and the other is the soldered one on the board, which is going to be plugging into the touch panel. And then you're taking the USB harness on the left into the USB input of the touch hub. Those are those rubber strips. You do not put them on the touch panel, but just to the side on the metal frame of the LCD panel. And they're shock absorbers. They're going to keep the LCD housing from hitting the panel and from the touch panel from moving around. I didn't tape the bottom, use double-sided tape on the bottom side, but I imagine you could. I mean, I did put the rubber on, but that earlier step I didn't use tape on the bottom. So this is wire management on the right side now. I'm actually doing it wrong, what you're seeing. What I did was I used electrical tape on the 2 individual wires coming off the controller board on the right. That's the one going to the webcam, and then the soldered one going to the touch panel. The problem with doing them individually is I couldn't then get them to fit over the chassis hinge or the hinge from the LCD. So I ended up redoing them, taking off the tape and then taping them up together, and it worked that time. This was seriously the worst part of the entire project. I cut out at least an hour of video just from screwing with this side of the panel. That's the hinge, same as you have on the other side, that you want to unscrew and tuck the wires underneath. You know, really the cables right there on the right aren't the problem. It's the one just under it, the bottom wires that I haven't gotten to yet, getting that to fit. And the problem is you don't realize it's done incorrectly until after you already tried putting the LCD housing back on and realize it won't snap all the way closed. I must have done it at least 5 times. So now I'm using electrical tape just to secure down those wires, make it more clean so they don't get caught into the housing when I snap the lid on. This is a bad video angle, but I was really frustrated at this point, so I wasn't paying attention. Right there is where I'm connecting the cable coming off of the touch panel into the the cord from the controller board. Getting it positioned was the hardest part. I ended up using athletic tape there to secure it down, but I had to redo it several times because actually the connector is the problem. It's the little black connector, and if you have it in just the wrong way, the housing won't snap all the way down on the bottom. This is the first time putting the housing back on, and I actually failed in this attempt. I get it all the way on, and then you'll see I have some space on the underside. So I took it off and redid it a few times. I didn't videotape that part. So there it's perfect. And I'm putting the screws back on. The kit says not to over tighten because you can crack the touch panel. So again, I just screwed until I just met resistance. Those cables going over the hinge kept moving back over, so I kept messing with those a lot. And voila! Okay, so putting the system board on now. I think I mentioned earlier this is the first time I'd ever taken apart my Aspire One, so I think if were I to do it again, which I probably will, to do an upgrade. Anyways, I'll do it a lot faster next time. It just took me a ridiculously long amount of time to disassemble and reassemble. I actually did the system board incorrectly the first time. I just screwed everything in instead of putting the keyboard housing on and then unscrewing. At this step, I think there's only 3 or 4 screws you should be putting in, and then you put the LCD housing on, or the keyboard housing on, and the remaining screws. But I didn't do that the first time, and it wasn't until I got the entire system back together that I realized my power button wasn't working because it was sitting up too high. So I took it apart, redid it, and this is where I redid it, so it shouldn't be leading anyone astray. Snapping this part back together was really easy. You have those satisfying little clicks you can hear to let you know that it's going back together properly. Before you get to that step, you want to make sure also that you have the Wi-Fi sitting properly in the little, I don't know what you call it, little space it's supposed to be in so it works, the little divot, because I didn't have that right either the first time, but I did this time. I had my screws all messed up at this point. Initially I thought I was being really organized by having them in little sections as I took the netbook apart, but by the time I got to this step I forgot which sections went to what, so I'm sure that I have like long screws where there should be short screws and short screws where there should be long screws, but I don't care. It's working and it's not falling apart yet. And then the last step is going to be putting the keyboard on, which I wish it came off as easily as it came on. It took me a long time to get the keyboard off because I didn't realize how hard I had to push in those little snaps. And then that's it. And then part 3 will be driver installation and a test drive.